Good morning, folks. It's 4:47 in the morning. A very brisk 37.9 degrees. Very cold. It's day 105. It's July 16th. And I'm waking up. Well, good morning, folks. It is 6:24 in the morning and still quite chilly. 38.4 degrees is what my thermometer is saying. Just feels really cold, man. I mean, probably because my socks, my shoes, my pants, my underwear, all that wet. Woke up this morning, the whole inside of my tent was very well condensated, if I can say that. Luckily my sleeping bag was only mildly damp and not completely soaked. So that was nice anyways, but I mean the sun hasn't really crested the tops of the mountains yet, as you may have seen in that sunrise clip, so there was really no opportunity for anything to kind of dry up this morning. But that's alright, whatever. Pack it up wet, hike on. That's just kind of how it goes. Aside from that, I slept all right. I didn't sleep great. The reason being, again, it was just too cold. Like, I would have been totally fine. Again, I got my 20-degree sleeping bag, which I'm usually quite happy with, but it was totally just user error. I didn't zip it up per usual. I only zipped up the bottom foot or two of the bag, and just to kind of close in my feet, and then I had the rest kind of splayed open above me, on top of me, whatever. And if I had zipped it up, I probably would have been just fine, but it's hard to, like, even when you're uncomfortable, it's hard sometimes to work up the motivation to actually rectify the problem instead of just continuing to ignore it. So I slept okay. It did also rain a little bit last night. Nothing torrential, nothing crazy, but definitely rained, as it did the night before, just for a short time. Let's see what else. Oh, you know, some of you may have noticed, I don't know if you will have or not, in yesterday's video, a little squirrel playing with string or something. So I was hiking by and I saw this squirrel like loading up what looks like, really, I mean, probably a couple years old paracord or some other sort of I don't know what, like some kind of cordage that had just been neglected on a tree, and I'm sure I saw him like frantically pulling at it. Well, one end was all frayed up, the part that was in his mouth, that is, and the other end was still tied onto the tree, so as much as he was tugging and yanking, he couldn't really get that this way. He couldn't really get that paracord off. So that's what the clip was him kind of pulling on the string, and then when I made my way over there, I went ahead and just cut the knot for him so that, you know, whenever he comes back to the paracord, hopefully he can take it and make use of it in a nest or something like this. But anyways, that's probably enough of that. We're gonna figure out whether we need to ford this little creek or river type thing, or what we're up to, and
my telephone is doing nothing.
Get hiking. All right, yeah, Martin's phone isn't working, so I'll pull mine out and hope that one's working. Anything else? No, we're only 23 miles from the junction to the bail point for the 15-mile spur down to the hitch point for Pinedale or something like that. I keep calling it 15 miles. I don't think it's actually 15 miles, by the way. I think it's less than that, but in my head I'm calling it 15, so whatever. Anyways, we'll figure out where in the world we're going and then hike on. Talk to you later. 10:27 in the morning, 64.4 degrees, and again, just a little bit early for a health update. Usually I would prefer to do these later, but I mean, there's the view that way, and let's just kind of pan around real slowly so you can take it all in, including the wildflowers, which have been with me all day today. Yeah. Anyways, I show you all this just to explain why I'm doing a health update this early, because I really don't know what the rest of the trail is going to be like today, or you know, for the next month and a half, 2 months, or whatever, for that matter. But I really don't know if there'll be a prettier spot than there is right here, right now. So I thought I might bring you along for a walk through an exceptionally picturesque little stretch of trail here. Well, day 105, multiple of 7, health update. Generally, still feeling very good. The big news of the week, of course, was throwing up the night before getting back on trail here out of Lander. But as I said that morning that I got back on trail a couple days ago, while it is something about which I remained extremely vigilant and hyper aware of, it hasn't been a problem. So very happy to report that, as I kind of suspected and felt at the time, once I purged whatever it was that was giving me trouble, you know, any complaint and discomfort subsided, and that was good. Real good. Real good. So that's good. Another thing I'll mention, kind of on a almost antithetical note, is that right ankle is still... barking might be overstating it, but I remain like hyper aware of any sort of physiological grievance while I'm hiking out here, and that hyper awareness certainly tends, more often than not at this point, to return a report of discomfort, borderline pain in the right ankle. Not severe. Hasn't gotten any more severe than the first time I mentioned it, whatever, weeks and weeks ago, maybe a few months ago, I don't even know. But it is something, again, about which I'm aware. This morning, indeed, I took a couple ibuprofen for the first time in a while, but didn't wrap it up with an ace bandage. So if that gives you any gauge as to how severe or unsevere the complaint is, then I'll let that speak for itself. Let's see, aside from that, you know, stomach after that episode a couple nights ago, doing fine. Head fine. Feet, I had spoken of blisters through the Great Basin. Those have all pretty well subsided. I have no blister complaints. I will say, Martin and I bought a cheap bag of Epsom salt from Family Dollar or something there in Lander, as well as my move is to buy sort of like a, I don't know what, maybe like a, I don't know what, like a maybe 26 by 20 inch kind of cheap aluminum roasting pan from that same dollar store, and use that as like a foot soak tub. So I was able to lance up the blisters and then, you know, drain them, and then while they were open, kind of soak them and, you know, wash them out that way and dry them out that way, and that seems to have worked. So no complaints in the blisters department. There's a couple people coming this way. Well, I'm not gonna turn off. It's too pretty to turn off, I think. But I might just kind of lower my voice and so they don't think I'm a complete crazy person. Let's see, what else in the body department? Knees, feet, that's all good. Hands, no more splits for a few weeks now, so that's pretty great. Always very nice. Gosh. Alright, I will turn off for a second. I'll come right back. Alright, well, in the moment since passing those folks, cloud has covered the sun for a moment, but looks pretty fleeting. So anyways, yeah, so the body's doing good. Body's doing good. Still feeling confident, still feeling, you know, more or less strong. I say more or less because every morning my legs just feel weary and tired. But you know, you work your way through it, you hike your way through it, and then by this time of the day I start kind of feeling like I'm clicking again usually. So that's good. I'll mention final note on body before we get into some gear stuff. I just crossed my 1700th mile hiked yesterday, which is pretty neat. But 1700 is kind of a number I've had in my head since before beginning this trail, because if I remember correctly, it was somewhere right around mile 1700 last year on the Appalachian Trail where I got into like a deep funk. I don't know how much of that translated in my videos, but I was just totally drained. I mean, I felt my body completely empty, which was I don't really know how else to explain it than that, but it was very clear to me that I was like subsistence eating at this point. There was no reserve in my body. I could tell you the exact moment when I burned the final calorie of whatever I ate last, and it got to me. It got to my body. It got to my head. It was really hard. Really hard. Add to that we were in New Hampshire, kind of like reputed to be the toughest state on the AT. Yeah, and it pretty well sat me down for 5 or 6 days while I just laid in bed, pretty much, and ate as much as I possibly could. And I didn't really know what to do, but eventually I kept hiking again, and eventually kind of that corner kind of turned, and that was good. I was able to finish. But anyways, all that to say that 1700 has kind of been in my head as like, I don't know, like a kind of like an albatross kind of hovering around me throughout this whole hike. So luckily so far I'm still feeling great. I'm still feeling pretty good. Those sort of hollow morning legs, but that's fine, you know. So I think this hike I've just tried to be extra vigilant about eating and nutrition and hydration and electrolytes and everything else. All that simple stuff that you tell yourself, but it's kind of hard to actually follow through on once you're out here hiking for 105 days. Yeah, so that's the final body thing. So gear, yeah, a couple gear items I want to shout out for sure. First and foremost, pretty much everything I carry that has anything to do with insect repellents. So the permethrin treated clothing has performed quite well, though I should mention I definitely noticed that, as you might expect if you were to think about it, the shoulder and back area of my shirts tends to have the permethrin wear off far earlier than any other aspect of any of the rest of my clothing. Well, go figure, you're carrying a 30-pound pack or whatever. But aside from that, the keratin has worked great. The bug net, the sort of head net thing that I was wearing last night, I feel like it definitely kind of warms me up a little bit in the head, but it's really nice. Not typically so much for when I'm hiking, as that seems less necessary, but really nice when I was at camp. Note as well, last night's check-in, I was wearing that head net incorrectly. I wish I had fixed it before I hit record, but hopefully here on in every video you see of me with the head net, I'll be wearing it properly. So rather than try and explain it, you can just keep your eyes open. Yeah. Another piece of gear I just wanted to mention. So when I asked my sister a few weeks ago to mail out, you know, a few odds and ends, among those odds and ends was a new pair of Injinji toe socks. And she mistakenly mailed out the wool ones instead of the Cool Max synthetic ones. But honestly, that's just fine. I don't really care. It really doesn't make that much of a difference. But today, I have on those wool Injinjis. This will be the first pair of wool Injinjis that I'm trying since getting ooh, golly, sometime after Pagosa or something, Southern Colorado for sure. Those first pair I had just blew out like within 2 or 3 days, so we'll see how this next pair holds up. That's still kind of TBD. With that, oh, you know, another piece of gear, final piece of gear, and then I'll be done. Promise. The Ursack and the Opsacks. I have not used these before. Again, the Ursack is the Kevlar bear and critter-proof, soft-sided bear bag for food storage, and then the Opsacks are those odor-proof. They look very much like Ziplocs, but supposedly they're, I think it said 17,000 times more odor-proof than Ziplocs. Looks kind of like just a jumbo Ziploc though. So my food lives in the Opsacks. The Opsacks live in the Ursack, and that's food storage in bear country. But anyways, I had no previous experience with either of these components, the Opsack or the Ursack. But I'm digging it. So far so good. It's only been 2 nights, so lots could change. But honestly, so far so good. It's not terribly inconvenient. Certainly a heck of a lot heavier than my Dyneema food bag, but on the other hand, a heck of a lot lighter and more pliable than a traditional bear canister. So yeah, so that's that. Happy with those things so far, but again, I expect I'll have a more informed opinion on those components a little further down trail. So anyways, that is it. Weekly health update. I guess we will keep hiking. I'm not sure if I said this at the beginning, but we're about 10 miles into the day, probably 11 by now. I'll talk to you guys later. All right, good evening, folks. It is 7:17 and 86.9 degrees. It's warm. Warm. But I have my Patagonia Houdini windbreaker on because the mosquitoes are absolutely madness. Which is, I guess, par for the course at this point. I've made it to camp for the night. I've come, gosh, I don't know what, 5 miles, maybe 6, I don't know, down the alternate off of the CDT, which tomorrow morning will lead me to Elkhart Trailhead, which I've probably explained 15 times by now, is the hitch point into Pinedale. Yeah, so I should be, oh gosh, pop quiz, 9 miles or so maybe from that Elkhart trailhead tomorrow morning. So probably 3 hours or something like that to get down there. We'll kind of see how we go. I have not seen Martin in hours and hours. I stopped for lunch. Well, let me back up. I haven't seen Martin for hours and hours. Earlier, he once again kind of was like, Beat, just move at your own pace. It's okay. Like, I don't want to hold you up and stuff like that. So I did. I mean, I always do typically move at my own pace. But yeah, I even stopped for a good long lunch and like took stuff out of my pack and kind of had a yard sale to dry stuff up off the condensation and rain last night. And even with that pretty protracted stop, I still he didn't catch up. So he's back there someplace. I know he's planning on hiking into Pinedale instead of hitching from the Elkhart trailhead. The rationale behind that is that he's not coming back to the CDT. He's going to be walking primarily road walks and all sorts of weird Martin alternates and stuff. Basically from here to well, I guess he'll pick up the CDT through Yellowstone and then diverge again and hike his own kind of hike up to Butte when he'll rejoin the CDT. At least that's his plan as of now. But my plan as of now is to get into my tent. Today was a really good day. It was definitely good to get back on the CDT and stayed on it most of the day until just this evening, this afternoon, this evening, when I diverged again. It definitely wasn't Cirque of the Towers today, but it was definitely beautiful nonetheless, for sure. I was kind of like wondering whether perhaps people boast so much about the majesty of Cirque of the Towers because the rest of the winds maybe isn't quite so majestic or anything. Well, that's not the case. It's definitely different, and Cirque is definitely, I mean, the king of what I've seen so far in this section, in this range. But there's still plenty more good stuff to come. So anyways, the plan is get down to Pinedale tomorrow morning, hopefully tomorrow morning whenever I can get a hitch, and likely stay the night there tomorrow, and then find my way back to trail the day after. So tomorrow is going to be a very light mileage day, at least according to the plan right now. Basically, I just want to bang out a resupply, get some videos uploaded, charge stuff up, maybe probably, hopefully, I should say, do some laundry, and then, bunk up. There's a new hostel in town. I'm excited to check that out and get back on trail the next day. So, and the next day, pretty much as soon as I get back on trail, I'll have to hike this weird alternate to get back to the CDT and then be on the CDT for probably less than a half mile before I take the knapsack coal alternate. So that should be a lot of fun as well. Super, super fun. I think that's all I got for today. I'm going to bunk up and I will talk to you guys tomorrow.